Welcome to Unit 6, Lecture 3. So this is the last lecture for the unit, last lecture for the year. So in this lecture, we're talking about speciation, which, like it sounds like, it is the process of becoming a new species. First of all, what does it mean to be a species? A species is a the most widely accepted definition of a species is called the biological species concept. So populations that can interbreed and create viable offspring. So that means that you can have a baby with somebody and then that baby can have a baby with somebody. So it basically means that you have to be able to become grandparents. So a horse and a donkey, while they can mate, they are not considered the same species because their offspring cannot go and have babies on its own. The mule can't have babies. Sometimes, like with the mule, the species or the similar species can mate and create a hybrid, but that hybrid cannot then continue its line, and so then it doesn't necessarily qualify as an individual species. So there are a couple of different ways that speciation can happen. There is allopatric speciation, which basically means some sort of barrier happens, usually some sort of geographic barrier, and so they become species because they're isolated from each other. And then there's sympatric speciation, where they become species while for some reason, one way or another, that species is its own population within the larger population and somehow diverges and becomes its own species. It's a lot harder for sympatric speciation to happen because there is no actual barrier between the populations, but for some reason it does. So then there are different types of reproductive barriers, and eventually to be a species you have to have some sort of reproductive barrier. So that reproductive barrier can happen pre-zygotic, so basically means before the zygote is formed, or it can happen post-zygotic, where the zygote is formed, it potentially can be born, but for one reason or another, it doesn't survive. So like the mule. Okay, so pre-zygotic habitat isolation, usually some sort of geographic barrier, so you guys get separated by a river, a rock, obviously depending on the size of the species and how well they move, that can be different things. Temporal isolation basically means that they mate at different times. Whoopsie. Okay, and that behavioral isolation, the mating dances are different. Okay, so the fiddler crab, if you go down to the beach, you'll see them. The fiddler crabs, male fiddler crabs, have one giant claw, and they wave it up and down. Okay, basically to show off their giant claw to the females. Another type of crab, like a ghost crab, might see that and go, you're kind of weird. I don't care about it. Okay, and so that's a behavioral isolation. Mechanical isolation basically means the reproductive parts don't work together. They can't somehow work. And then gametic isolation basically means post-sex, basically, the sperm doesn't fertilize the egg. Okay, and then we have post-zygotic, which is reduced hybrid viability, which basically means the hybrid can't survive. Reduced hybrid fertility means the hybrid cannot have offspring. And then hybrid breakdown, which basically means the hybrid is not nearly as robust or healthy. So here's some pictures. So some pre-zygotic habitat isolation. So you can see that you got the one frog on the land, the one frog in the water, and basically like they can't decide, nobody wants to go to each other's house. Behavioral isolation, so you've got the one bird singing country music and you've got the other bird going, country. And then temporal isolation, okay, wake up, it's time to release pollen. And then, give me a few more months. Okay, so basically the timing doesn't work out. So those are different kinds of ways that isolation occurs in the pre-zygotic. Remember, pre-zygotic means the gametes never fuse and never create a zygote. So a zygote is a fertilized egg. So prezygotic means that that never happens. Postzygotic means that the gametes fuse, potentially, okay, in some way, shape, or form, they give rise to an offspring, but then that offspring, for whatever reason, cannot actually survive. So here we have an example of with the horse and the donkey and the mule. So the horse and the donkey can create the hybrid mule. However, the mule has a diploid number of 63 and cannot then go and make gametes itself. So that's reduced hybrid fertility. And then hybrid breakdown, you can see here where we have the hybrid, and this is a little hard to see, but the hybrid is really small. And so because it's so small, it doesn't generally have as, it doesn't survive as well. It can't make its gametes, it can't produce offspring, and so that's hybrid breakdown. Okay, it was a quick one. Okay, but remember, species can happen in different ways. There is no wrap up for this lecture. All right, I just want you to study for the final. Have a great day. All right, bye.